Good evening, folks. It's Rob from 4am. Okay, so welcome to the last modifier video of the Modify modifiers. Tomorrow we're going to start generate. I just thought I've done the weight mix tonight, so I thought I'll finish off this last vertex weight proximity tonight, and then start fresh tomorrow with the brand new generate modifiers, which are going to be so much fun. I love using them. It's one of the things that I have got quite a bit of experience in. No, I say quite a bit of experience. I'm still quite new to this, but I have used a lot of them, so I can actually do a lot more with those. Okay, so today we're going to use the vertex weight proximity. I've had a little play around with it. Now I've kept the same object that we used in the last video. Reason being is I set up two groups. Group 1, group and then group 001, which was for our values in the weight paint. So what I actually done with this one was decided to assign a few different strengths. So like 0.1 all to this side, 0.2, no, 0.3, oops, all to this side, 0.5 all to this side, 0.7 this side, 0.9 gonna apply for the top, and then full strength of 1 is going to be on the bottom, just to give us a nice random mix of excuse me, a nice random mix of weights. Okay, so yep, I'll just go through the options and then I can show you a little bit of using it basically. So the modifier sets the weights of the given vertex group based on the distance between the object or its vertices. So hence why I've added this little object in here, so that we can actually use this. You do have to have another object in the 3D view in your project to actually use this. Yeah, the modifier sets the weight of the given vertex group based on the distance between the object or its vertices and another target object or its geometry. The modifier does implicit clamping of weight values in the standard 0.0 to 1.0 range. All values below 0.0 will be set to 0.0 and all values above 1.0 will be set to 1.0. So same as before, if it's below 0.0 it'll be 0.0, if it's above 1.0 it'll be down to 1.0. So here's our options. Vertex group, the vertex group to effect. Sorry, which as you can see I have two vertex groups there. You can create probably as many as you want, it's up to you, but I'll just keep it to two, just to keep it easier for myself basically. Then we have our target object, the object from which to compute distances. So this is going to be our target object, this little square dude over here, which I've named our object. So I'll just go to our object there, and then we have, where is, okay, I've just got to find which part of which is going on here. Okay, so where it is here, distance, this is the proximity mode basically. There we go, proximity mode. So object distance uses the distance between the modified mesh object and the target object as weight for all vertices in the affected vertex group. Geometry distance uses the distance between each vertex and the target object or its geometry. Okay, so when you go on to geometry, it then opens this little guy at the bottom here. Okay, so we then have vertex. This will set each vertex's weight from its distance to the nearest vertex of the target object. Edge. This will set each vertex's weight from its distance to the nearest edge of the target object. Face. This will set each vertex weight from its distance to the nearest face of the target object. If you enable more than one of them, the shortest distance will be used. If the target object has no geometry, example an empty or a camera, it will use the location of the object itself. So how would we select 2? I'm not sure how we'll do that, but okay, yep, whatever. So lowest is distance mapping to 0.0 weight, highest distance mapping to 1.0 weight. Lowest can be set above the highest to reverse the mapping. So you simply slide either way. If that's higher than the highest, then the map gets reversed. So leave that as 1. Mess around with that in a minute. Fall off type. A type of mapping, we have linear, no mapping. Okay, we should then have a custom curve. Maybe that is in objects. No, okay. It's not giving a custom curve at the moment, but at some point, if we do group, nope, doesn't give us a custom curve. I was looking for that before and I didn't seem to find it at all. But if it does give you a custom curve, it allows the user to manually define the mapping using a curve. So exactly the same as the other, which was this one. You go into custom curve, you can then adjust it like this, which is how we made funky things happen. Then you have your sharp, smooth, root, sphere. It works exactly the same. These are classical mapping functions from spikiest to roundest. We then have random, uses a random value for each vertex. We then have median step, which creates binary weights 0.0 or 1.0 with 0.5 as a cutting value. Global influence, once again, the overall influence of the modifier. 0.0 will leave the vertex group's weights untouched. 1.0 is standard influence. Okay, so yeah, the global influence, sorry about that, just had to go and sit to my little wonder 3-year-old. Global influence, the overall influence of the modifier. 0.0 will leave the vertex group's weights untouched. 1.0 is standard influence. Influence only affects weights. Adding and removing of vertices to or from vertex group is not prevented by setting this value to 0.0. Then we have our vertex group mask. An additional vertex group, the weight of which will be multiplied with the global influence value for each vertex. If a vertex is not in the masking vertex group, its weight will not be affected. Then we have our texture mask. An additional texture, the values of which will be multiplied with the global influence value for each vertex. This is a standard texture data block control. When set, it reveals other settings. So let's go ahead, set it. Texture coordinates. Once again, we have local, global, and UV, but this time we also have object. So texture coordinates, how the texture is mapped to the mesh. Local, use a local vertex coordinates. Global, use vertex coordinates in global space. Object, use vertex coordinates in another object space. UV, the object to be used as a reference for, object, there we go. And then this object is the object to be used as a reference for object mapping. And then UV, use a UV layer's coordinates. UV map, or it can also be called UV layer, the UV layer to be used for UV mapping. So once again, we have our UV map there if you wanted to use it, but we're not going to. Then we have use channel. Which channel to use as a weight factor source? Red, green, blue, alpha. Same as always, one of the color channel's values. Intensity, the average of the RGB channels. If RGB is 1.0, 0.0, 0.0, value is 0.33. As 1 is one value, it's split between the three values of RGB, comes out as 0.33. value, the higher the value of the RGB channels. If RGB is set to 1.0, 0.0, and 0.0, value is 1, as 1 is the highest value of the RGB, being red as 1. Hue uses the hue value from the standard colour wheel. Example, blue has a higher hue value than the yellow, and I'm very interested to actually have a look at this this colour wheel in the hue to figure out these values myself and have a look at what exactly that's talking about. Saturation, use the saturation value. Example, pure red value is 1, grey is 0.0. Okay, so that's the end of that part, and now is the part where I actually make something happen. So we have the group there, and we have group 1. And here's where it's gonna not do anything for me. So I did make something happen before. There we go. Okay, so these are all set into group 1. Let's hide that up a little bit, see what happens. This is now set to group 001. We see if we change the lowest, it does change that. How exactly that affects, I do not know. We change the highest on there as well. If we go back to a normal group, this does nothing at all. Not entirely sure why, but if it changes the geometry, okay, that's interesting. So that's now changing because we have this guy in front. The vertices are matching up to these vertices. So technically, if we do that, and can we not? No, can't do it like that. No. Okay, but that would technically be like kind of a square because it's mapping off this, and then that's matching the edges, and you can see how the value is changing a little bit because that green is sticking out. There we go, and if we higher that up, it now moves it further and further back, so the highest will be at the back over here for some reason now. Set the lowest down there. And then that inverts the whole map. So whereas red is up the top here, remember before we said if the lowest is higher than the highest, it'll invert it. So if this goes above 3.4, there we go, it then inverts the whole thing. And it'll do that each time this value goes above this value. And that's pretty much the only thing I've been able to make happen at the moment, and I didn't even know that I could make that part happen, to be honest. So again, that's changing with the face geometry of this as well. But yeah, on the on our next on our next lot of tutorials, we will be on the generate ones, which I can't wait to get to. They're going to be so much fun. And I'm going to do a lot learning these, so the tutorials are probably going to be a lot longer, but once again, you know, I am going to go through and then tell you exactly what everything does on them. But yes, until then, thank you very much. As always, like, comment or subscribe. Thank you.